Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of our Solution Prescribers podcast. Today, I'd like to talk about the power of validation. And so, as we get started, I want to invite everybody to think about the definition of what does validation mean. As what does it mean to validate someone, someone's emotion, someone's situation? What does that mean? I'd like to get started by sharing a story or a video that I watched, and you can take a look at it on YouTube. It's called "It's Not About the Nail," and there's a situation where this lady has a nail on her forehead, and she's complaining to her husband or to her boyfriend about having pressure. She goes, "I have all this pressure on my head, and I don't know what to do with it. And there's this headache, and there's this nail in the middle of her forehead." And so the husband goes, "Well, you do have a nail there. So if you remove it," she goes, "It's not the nail. It's not about the nail." And he goes, "Yes, it is. If you remove the nail, then the pain would go away." And then she gets very frustrated. "You see, I don't need you to fix things. I just need you to listen. You're not listening to me." And he goes, I am listening. It's the nail on the forehead." And she once again is arguing on the fact that it's not about the nail. "Can you just listen to me?" And he goes, "Okay, fine. I'll just listen." And then she continues and she goes, "There's a lot of pressure, as I mentioned. I can't sleep at night, and all my sweaters are snagged, and it's just very frustrating." And then at that moment, the husband or the boyfriend says, "Yeah, that must be hard." And she goes, she feels hurt, and she goes, "Yeah, it is." And then finally, she feels like she can move forward with it, and the reality is, oftentimes, when it comes to validation does not mean that they're right. We don't have to agree with them. And sometimes we confuse agreeing with validating, that I have to agree with them for them to feel validated. We don't. We just have to acknowledge their space, acknowledge where they're coming from, understand where they're coming from. And I'll use another example. Oftentimes when we are trying to acknowledge, when we want to feel validated, we don't want to be corrected, or we don't want the solution right away. The solution right away, not so much corrected, but the solution right away. And I'll give the example of somebody who may show up too late to work all the time, and they show up and they arrive 10, 15 minutes late, and they go, "Traffic, right? Oh my gosh, traffic." And they want other people to say, "Yeah, I know, traffic." They don't want to hear anybody say, "Well, if you woke up 15 minutes earlier, you'd arrive here on time." They don't feel validated. They feel, "Man, they're so rude to me." They don't understand that there's traffic. Right? And so let's talk about how to validate empathically, or use empathy when you're validating. And I want to address specifically the emotions of shame, of our patients when they come with shame, embarrassment, nervousness, confusion, negative emotions maybe about themselves. And so how do you validate that situation? So somebody comes in and they say, "You know what, I'm here because I'm so embarrassed that I have a lot of acne, adult acne, and I don't want to be here. I don't like going out. I don't like going out to visiting my friends, because I don't know if they're looking at me or if they're looking at the acne. I just feel embarrassed. I can't cover it with makeup anymore. It's gotten really bad now, and now it's scarring. So now I'm really nervous, and I'm very frustrated because I had it as a teenager. It went away. Now it's back, and those type of emotions. So how do you validate that? And so I want to talk about the 3 steps to make sure that we validate correctly with empathy. Okay, let me share a do not as we get started. Sometimes when people come to us with problems or concerns or negative emotions, we tend to apologize. We say, "I'm so sorry," and the reality is, what are you sorry about? What are you sorry? It's interesting because when we say that, without realizing, we're shutting them down, because now we've taken the spotlight from them to us. And the reason why I say that is because as we say, "I'm so sorry about that," they may respond, "Oh, it's okay. I've gotten used to it." And now they're minimizing their emotion, because now they're making me feel bad. Like now I feel guilt, or I feel sad, and they don't want you to have those feelings either. So the first step is acknowledge them. Don't apologize, acknowledge it. And so a way to acknowledge it is by saying thank you. So maybe you can replace the word sorry to thank you, and in this situation. And so how would I thank them? "Thank you for having acne?" No, that would not be the case. But it's more like, "Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And so the first step of showing empathy while validating is you acknowledge and you sizzle with the emotion. So acknowledge the fact that they're sharing something, that they're trusting you, that they're entering into sacred space. So you go, thank you so much for sharing this with me. Yeah, that must be hard, having to deal with adult acne at this stage in our lives, and especially if you've tried everything and you still don't see results, and you're trying to cover it with makeup and you still can't do that, and it gets to a point that you don't want to go out, but then you're not happy because you do want to go out with your friends, and so you sizzle with the emotion that they realize they get me. They understand what I'm going through. They acknowledge me. They see me. They sit with me. Okay. So the first step is thank them, and then sizzle with the emotion. It is not, I'm sorry you're going through that. That must be hard, and that's it. That's too generic. Sit down with them. If somebody's talking about laser hair removal, and maybe the fact that they have hair on their upper lip and their chin, and it's very frustrating because they don't want to have to wake up earlier than their husbands or earlier than somebody else, and they don't want to be shaving, and that's embarrassing. And when I go out camping, and you kind of sit with the emotion of what they're sharing with you. Okay. The second step, so acknowledge and sizzle with the emotion. The second step that we do is that we normalize the situation. Now, normalize it, don't dismiss it. Here is some things that some don'ts. I want to share some don'ts. We don't use ourselves as an example right away. Oh, it's okay, I also had it. Oh, it's okay, I also had adult acne. And because it's okay that even though you're trying to connect and make them feel secure that it's okay, it could come across as dismissal, that you're dismissing me, or this is not about you, it's just about me. And so we normalize it, and the way to normalize it is by saying how many people you've seen in that situation. Right? It can be something to this regards. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That's step number one. It might be hard to have to deal with this and then I sizzle with the emotion. And then I transition to normalizing by saying, you'd be surprised how many people come here with that situation alone. In fact, last week, or if you want to add yourself, you can add yourself after you've talked about the hurt, about the people. That way, it's not a spotlight between them and you, but you become evidence of many people. And in fact, I'm one of them. So a way to normalize it, I'll repeat that, is, you know what, you'd be surprised how many people come here with that deal with adult acne. And we see that actually on a daily basis. And in fact, I used to have adult acne myself, so totally understand where you're coming from. And then the third step to validate with empathy is you provide hope. You've come to the right place, or we've got some great solutions for you, or let me ask you a couple of questions so we can find the right roadmap. Would that be okay? Those are the three steps to ensure that you are validating with empathy. You're acknowledging, you're seeing them, you're normalizing them, you're helping them be on your team before you take them to solutions. This is what I love about the power of validation, is that sometimes we don't validate if we don't know where we're going to take it, if we don't know the solution, if we don't know the outcome. The great thing is that if you can validate correctly, man, everything else falls through nicely, because it's all about the setup. If they feel that you understand them, and then you get their point, and you've seen it as well because you're the expert and there's some solutions, then together you guys can collaborate towards those solutions. And that's really where the power of validation is maximized, is that now you guys can collaborate together because you're on the same team, because they felt heard by you, and now they feel an alliance with you. And so as you are meeting with your patients and meeting with your clients, we want to prevent is just saying, I'm sorry you're going through that, or, oh, it's okay, I've had that before, and then minimizing or dismissing it when it should just be normalized. And then don't give a solution right away. Don't give a solution. Say, hey, you've come to the right place. Let me ask you a few questions, and ask the questions that you need before you jump into the solution. Don't be like, oh, we got a great program for acne. No, Let's ask some additional questions. Tell me more. What have you tried? Tell me more about this. And then you can provide the solution. So validation is very separate than the solution. So practice those 3 steps this week. Practice those 3 steps. How am I acknowledging without apologizing? How am I normalizing without dismissing? And how am I providing hope without giving a solution? And if you can focus on those 3 steps before going into the roadmap, their desire to engage with you, collaborate with you, and even partner with you increases because they've felt heard and validated. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, and I'm sending any examples as you have applied this with your teams.